Hello, everybody, and welcome to yet another episode of the Lumière Learning Monday. We are on season 5, episode 10, and I'm greatly privileged to have two inspiring women friends, Dr. Alka Hingorani and Gayathri Thakoor, who I met as when they were working, when we were all working together at the Tata Center for Technology and Design of IIT Bombay. And that's where, Gayatri, you exposed us to the idea of LeTS. At that time, it was LeTS. And even now, it was really learning through stories. And that's really what was the fascinating idea, the LeTS Foundation. And today, as co founders, you are in your fourth year of your journey, I think.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes, and here you are to tell us a little more about what you do, how you came upon this idea, and both of you, one educator, designer, the other a journalist, a communicator, and tell us all you can in this module, and we'll sort of go along and unravel parts and bits of your story and how you impact so many children in the communities.
Thank you. Our pleasure. Alka?
Thank you, Gayathri. Thank you very much, Deepa, for having us here for this conversation. My name is Dr. Alka Hingorani, and I teach at the IDC School of Design in IIT Bombay. As Deepa has already mentioned, it's through the Tata Center for Technology and Design that we met. Tata Center was also our initial and very generous supporter when this idea began as a project at IIT. The foundation, as you rightly said, is 3.5 years old. But for about 6 years, we worked on this as part of a research project on campus. We did step out because the idea was to meet with people in village schools. And it began initially as a call from the field. I was in Himachal Pradesh, which was the area in which I had done my own dissertation research, where I had got to know some people in the local high schools and so on. And there was an urge to teach English as a language in an area where it is neither spoken nor heard. And the reason that they wanted to learn it now, even though it had been part of their curriculum for a very long time, was the increase in internet connectivity. Suddenly, teachers realized that with their phones, they could connect to the world and learn things that were available on the net, except that the bulk of that material was available in English. Until then, they had not thought it really necessary. Their kids didn't speak it, they themselves didn't speak it well, they didn't need it, you know. But now here was this new toy, but also tool that they thought they might be able to use for pedagogic purposes, except there wasn't this facility with the language. And when I spoke to them about it, I said, teaching English as a foreign language, teaching English as a second language, TFL and TSL, those pedagogies have been around forever and more.
Yes.
So they asked us to help them cull whatever is available out in the world to those ones that they thought might fit their needs best. The project began like that. I had one research associate, Arti Kalro, and the two of us began looking at what's out there that they could use. When we went to visit them in a tiny village called Khund in Himachal Pradesh on the other side of Jarodi Pass, 9.5, 10,000 feet above sea level, we realized that most of these pedagogies assume a European middle classness as their context. And in terms of technical competence, as well as they might do, there was no relationship that you could establish with what was the content of the teaching material.
Wow.
And how do you establish a relationship with language learning when neither you nor your context are reflected in it? And often we speak of language like this, right? We say language is an expression of culture.
Yeah.
But if it is a foreign language, we thought, can we stand it on its head and write ourselves into language? And that's how this idea of telling our stories, illustrating them, and using those very things then to learn language began.
Yeah. Yeah.
Over time, we have moved from learning language to learning. And that's where you will see that if you look at our acronym, it was LETS capitals. Now we've knocked the E down to a smaller case so that it's learned through stories, where how we learn and what we learn becomes more important, in terms of who is doing the creation of content and what is being reflected as content. So when you learn biology, is it the tree outside your window that's in the book that you're using? Is it the housefly rather than the yellow jacket that is your way of approaching the world of insects? When you're talking about water, is it the little stream, the Nala as they call it in Himachal Pradesh, that you're talking about, and the critters that you find around it, rather than talking about like the Mississippi River or Nile or whatever, or even the Ganga for that matter, as large and long and wonderful and ours as it is, can be become even more context specific. Because to see yourself mirrored in what is the material around you is also, in some sense, to exist in the larger imagination of a culture.
Yeah, and so important and also so respectful, I think, of the context, being able to bring that into their life and make it real and accessible for the community.
Yes, also playful and joyous.
And creative.
Because it's yours,
Yes.
you can do with it what you like with far greater confidence than if you were borrowing.
Yeah, and suddenly the distance just collapses, I guess, between the
Indeed.
content, the assimilation, and being able to play with it and
Yeah.
make it your own in a sense.
And reflecting and learning from it.
Yes. No, thank you. This is actually very important. So, one of the things that we've noticed is that children don't easily have a close relationship with books. And
Yeah.
especially where the material appears distant. That can mean that you don't know the language, or the content is new, or it is just not from near you. All of those reasons become reasons of fearfulness.
Absolutely. And then it becomes forbidden. It's suddenly not for me, it's dismissed
Yes.
as opposed to embraced.
Yes. Whereas if the
So,
distance is shortened, then
yeah.
embrace is a lovely word to use. Yes.
Yeah. So, did you work with the same cohort over time? Was it longitudinal, or did you take this and then move it to other schools, different contexts, and then did the context also change as you move along?
So we speak about being a research project still, because
Yeah.
your question leads us to talk of the kind of experiences we've had as a research team. So Alka,
Sure.
you should talk about
Well,
those.
there are two parts in the answer to this. One is, one intent is to use context relevance,
Yeah.
and storytelling and illustration or art as the mode of articulating both ourselves and what we wish to learn. Right. One part is that intent. But there's also another equally important part to it. I keep thinking about how, when you and I talk about places, for instance, if I were to ask you, can you name a place in Italy? It's very, very easy and quick. Even if I asked you for village names, you might know a handful of them in other countries. For those of us in Asia, and partly because of our history of colonization and so on, we look to the West as an aspirational place. And so we
Yeah.
know more about it than we know about our own backyard. I would not easily be able to name, for instance, like 12 villages in India. Having grown up in Bombay, lived here and elsewhere, but mostly in cities, I would not be able to do that at all. How do we seed our own imagination with the places that are around us, with the people that are around us? Because all of this makes us who we are. And this is not a question of thinking, oh my God, somehow that is important in the world. This is a question of saying, is it important to who I am as a person? If this
Yeah.
is the culture that shapes me, then is its articulation important? Okay.
Yeah.
When I say that now, there is no way that we can carry process to
Uh,
places. Process has to generate from places,
Yes.
right?
okay.
Which means you need time. The other reason we need a lot of time is that we have a hugely stratified society. To
Yeah.
find common ground for conversation, for content, it exists. When we start talking, we know we are talking about the same things.
Yeah.
But to believe that common ground exists for conversation takes time to build. We have divided our way of thinking into haves and have-nots, rural and urban, rich and poor, all those kinds of things. And so we are constantly talking in terms of affordability as an axis rather than creativity as an axis.
Yeah.
They're talking about how can we help others rather than how do we talk about these things as equals. So
Correct.
we have to begin creating the ground for this kind of equality to emerge. It's always going to need longitudinal time.
Yeah.
We have unfortunately begun to live in an era where we don't think of time as a friend.
Yeah.
So when even I keep thinking we can't talk about education as a business model because the moment we use language like that, there's nothing evil about business, but the moment we use like that, we are forced to think about children or students as slack.
And
Yeah.
that leads us to why we decided to become a not-for-profit from being a
Yes.
research project at IIT Bombay. We were ready. We had moved. We had gone to a few geographies where the collaborative process that we'd worked with students, we'd worked with teachers and schools in a few remote communities, and it had been we'd reached a stage where this needed to go out of the research confines, out of IIT Bombay, and
Yeah.
into many, many more geographies in the wider world, so that many more children, teachers, schools, and communities could could try and collaborate with us and learn
Yeah.
with us. And which
Yeah.
is why when Alka says, that children could not be our clients, we couldn't be doing anything other than forming a not-for-profit enterprise.
Yeah.
And
So
that,
they are, sorry to cut you. So what I hear you say is that it's an ecosystem of stakeholders
yeah,
where the learners become one component, then you have the schools, you have the parents, the community, all of which become the space within which Let's model can
yeah.
operate. Is that correct?
That uh, would be our yes, that would be the community that we work with. But in order to work with this community, you've got to have a circle of partners who will work with you.
Hmm.
We've been doing this for the past 3.5 years, doing it ourselves. Before, when we were at IIT Bombay, there was the Data Center for Technology and Design, which really, really supported our work. Post that, we've been doing this by ourselves, looking for partners, looking for stakeholders, when I say stakeholders, I speak of NGOs, I speak of schools, I speak of individual donors, I
Teachers,
speak of
librarians.
teachers, librarians, all of who work with us, I mean, for us. And that is how important it is to be able to reach that child or that school or that teacher. And that's how different it has been in the past 3.5 years of work.
Yeah, I'll just add one thing to this. You use the word model, and I'd like to clarify that we use the word model slightly differently ourselves, in that, on the one hand, it is true that we are carrying a certain process to groups of people, which
Yes.
includes teachers and students and librarians and so on. But part of our model is for us to become redundant to them,
Yes.
for us to be
Someday.
able to step away so that once they realize what together we are able to create, and some of which is represented in our books, but also in the process of, there's this lovely line that somebody's used about how one way of teaching might be to follow the child, to see where the child's curiosity is leading her, and then to see how whatever it's being led to can be expressed and articulated. And once that is done collaboratively, and once a place begins to own it, then they will tweak it to meet their needs. Then
Yeah.
they'll tweak it to represent their context. And when that begins to happen, which takes some time, we need to
Patience.
step back
Yeah.
and we need to become the end of the pipeline. where we say, now, once you've created this material, can we help you as designers to publish it in a way in which the child's eyes pop out because of the quality of the work she sees she has created?
Yes, yes.
I mean,
So yeah.
yeah.
So as she speaks, here's Clever Kalyani. Okay, this is a book that has been made by. If you see this, there are a number of names written here. These are the names. There's Yamuna, Saundarya, Kavya, and so on, and they are all from APMS School, Gudupalli, in near Kuppam in Andhra Pradesh. And these are the lovely illustrations that have been made by the children, the story that has been written by the children together, and it has been a collaborative effort. What we're trying to say is, when Alka said publish, these have been raw works made by children through the many workshops that we've uh, facilitated. If these beautiful pieces of art and narratives can become wonderful books like these, you imagine the ownership, you imagine the pride that children will have in the kind of um, content that they have created. I mean, this is another one. They're all here. We can go on and on.
I know.
But
Yeah.
here there
Yeah.
is
How do you own something like
this.
this and approach it back again? Because it's yours.
Can this, let's say, what has been created by Kalyani and group, can this be used by children in other states? So, for example, I'm thinking Amar Chitrakatha.
Yes.
Now, if for example, I have a story that comes from a place, Tenali, but
Yeah.
all of us consume it.
Yes.
It suddenly becomes ours, and the
Yes.
culture has just expanded and explored to include
Exploded.
and assimilate one more story.
You said
Yes.
it. You said it.
This is exactly the intent. So when we have and in the past, I think 3 decades or so, children's literature in India has actually become really fabulous compared to what it was prior to that time.
Yeah.
On an absolute scale, we still have a lot of work to do.
course.
But on a relative scale, we've come a very long way in the last 2 or 3 decades. Yes. And even though there are some stories that represent non-urban living in India, those have still been written by urban minds, drawn by urban hands. And we are trying to shift that balance. We're trying to say, can you flood children's literature by minds and hands that are from the places that are being spoken of?
So what we are doing also in to kind of take your question a little ahead, these books are going to rural libraries across the country.
Yes.
We have reached
Yes.
libraries in 14 states already, taking these books out. We've reached 125 libraries, and I know that 50 more sets have gone, to reach across the country.
Yeah.
I just had a conversation a couple of days ago with a wonderful, enterprising woman in Kargil who says, I'd love to have your books. I'd love to have my children read from those books, learn from those books, and make our own. Can we collaborate? Can we do this? We are hearing from Sumur, which is near Nubra Valley in Ladakh. There are these people who are waiting to see our books over the 125 libraries we've already reached, and they're waiting to make their own stories too. I mean, can we go to these? For sure. The point is, how many more libraries can we reach? How many more children can read these Kalyanis and Khichdis and the boy and the calves that we have? I mean, we'd love to flood them. Alka has a
Yeah.
magic figure of 5,000. 5,000 libraries.
Yeah.
I mean,
hopefully, we are underestimating where we'll go.
Yeah.
But speaking of books and the reach and so on, and the fact that it'd be lovely to see these books across libraries, rural and urban, across this country. The other thing that I wanted to mention, and I sort of pointed at it earlier when we said every time that we think of the rural, we
Yeah.
think of affordability, and we have some wonderful organizations in our country. Pratham comes to mind, Eklavya, Tara particularly
Tulika.
comes to mind, Tulika, Akshara Foundation comes to mind. These are to some extent government supported, Pratham to a large extent To some extent, they have private funding and so on. And
Yes.
their intent has been to reach as many children as possible.
True.
And I love it. I love that they exist because that makes what we want to do possible. Where we are saying there are already groups working on breadth. Can we work on going deeper? Can we work on showing a 10-year-old, 12-year-old child in a village who has constantly been told that going to the city is a way to make a success of your life, that their work can look like this while they are in the village? So we are, every time that we have approached people for funding also, one of the first questions that comes to, I think, is, can you not make this a little less expensive so that you could reach more people? And it's a really valid concern. I do not doubt that the intent, the place that it comes from, is a genuine one. But I also think that it is not. I think that we have normalized stratification in our society to such a degree that we will ask for another child to be given only what is affordable when we never ask for that for our own child. We want to pluck the moon and bring it to our child. But we are unwilling to say that if we have deep pockets, can we give a 700 rupee book rather than a 70 rupee book to a child in the village? And I don't even mean that this only transforms the child's life. We look around us and very many times we lament at the state of our country, despite what we know its potential to be. And I genuinely believe that unless you can show people what their world can be, you're not helping them work to realize it. If we cannot show children what their work can look like, how will they ever aspire to it?
Exactly. How will they know?
And how, some probably will, they'll be the outliers, like 2 out of 200. Can we make them 10 out of 200?
Yeah.
I'm not expecting it to be 200 out of 200. Nowhere in the world or in any time does that happen. But you need to have a population size which is a reasonable percentage of the entire population that craves a certain quality of living. And when that happens, all of us benefit. We are not doing this for anybody else. We're really doing it to create a world in which you and I want to live.
So, from a point of view of, arriving at one book or one story, the process of, like you said, it takes time. Just to give an estimate, so how long did Khichdi take, for example, in the making? So is it like how many workshops would that be? Or is that something that where the process gets...
We're in the Scene Village
We'll do
workshop
that.
right now, right?
Yeah. So we'll speak of this. We'll speak of Matka. We'll speak of two books that we have.
Yeah.
One is Matka. This is Matka, and Alka, if you can, please.
Sure.
This is Matka, and Matka was made in Bhopal with a collaboration with Muskan Foundation, and this was made with children. Muskan Foundation works with children from the tribal communities.
Yeah.
We went for a workshop in August 2021.
Okay.
A team went there for a workshop in August 2021. The children there collaborated with us. We made 3 different stories, right?
Yeah.
And we came back, our facilitator, Ruchi Shah, who's awesome, came back with wonderful illustrations and stories and narratives. And we knew we had a loveliness to work with. Now that book moved so fast in terms of process, in terms of design, in terms of refinement and publishing, that within 6 months, we had this book ready. Now we have something which is ready. When I say ready, I mean
to distribute.
To distribute.
To distribute to the libraries.
So the book goes back to again, several things in this. The stories generally are written in the native language of that area, right? So Matka was written in Hindi and it comes to us and then it gets translated into English. And so far, we have only done English language books. But because the original books are in like Telugu and Tamil and Hindi and Pahadi and so on, Varli in fact as well, it's very easy for us to go back to it and say, can we make a second copy of this in that original language, right? And then later on, to say, can we get a couple of translators and maybe get a Gujarati copy or a Marathi copy of it or a Bengali copy of it? All of these things are possible in the sense that the artwork, the page design, the book is ready. Okay?
Correct.
There's not enough funding to do a good job of translation, because we have, amongst the LeTS team itself, we probably have 4 or 5 languages amongst us. If we want to do it in more languages, we need people who will spend good amount of time on making a good translation of it, and then somebody to vet it. Because if somebody translates the playfulness of a book into Telugu, I want to know that it is playful, right? And I don't speak Telugu. So we need to create a team in which all of this stuff can happen. And once there is funding for it, the time taken for it will not be huge. Even in terms of it taking 6 months, when we come back with the book, we create the first copies in the original language within like a few weeks. And those books go back to the places from where they were created.
Community,
within a few weeks, right? Then we need to translate, we need to redesign or tweak the pages a little bit and so on, and have it print ready. Between its print readiness and its printing, money is the only thing that is the block.
And therefore, then
so if we have the money, it can get printed within like a month and a half. If we don't have the money, it can take a year and a half.
But Alka,
right? So funding, even for we have 21 titles that are now with us.
Okay.
If we got people coming and saying, here are 10 lakh rupees and you can create 1,000 copies each of 4 titles or 6 titles or whatever, and send them out to 1,000 rural libraries. We can do that in the next 6 months. That whole task, from getting the money to its delivery in the places, can be accomplished. Right?
But I'd like us to speak of SEAM.
Okay.
So when you showed you Matka, we spoke of Matka. We've had another workshop just last year in SEAM, which is at Happy Children's Library which is near Nainital, in a village near Nainital. And Alka was there at that point. So Alka, you have to tell Deepa about how we made books there too, but we haven't published these. How long did it take for us to make these books, go back to the children? That's something that you need to tell them.
Well, that, as I just said, I mean, we came back and I think within 6 weeks, we had sent them. The other question that needed answering was, how long does it take to build a story? It doesn't take any time at all. A 5-day workshop gives us 3 stories with artwork.
Children are awesome.
But that's not our intent. See, that is a wonderful thing that comes out of the process we are talking about. When we say longevity, we are saying we need to go back to the same children, to the same teachers, to the same schools or libraries for a whole year of 6 to 7 workshops. By which time, by the 7th workshop, we are not even present. We are just available. They are conducting it and they know that we are a phone call away if they hit any snag. But we need that independence to develop over 6 to 7 workshops. It cannot happen if I'm able to do a workshop in SEAM last July, as we did, and we are in March and I have not been able to go back again. Right?
So one is the story, the drawing, the artwork, the whole visual and the words.
Which we create together. The process is, we give them a bag full of words that can be entirely random. And then together we build a story out of it of like 10 sentences or 12. And 12 children are in one group for that story. So each child, she or he, the double spread that articulates or visually articulates their textual writing. And then those pages put together build into a book. And then we teach them how to make the book in the workshop. So we go and take color printouts of these drawings, and we teach them how to make a book in the workshop, so that the first book in their personal library very often is the book that they have authored, illustrated, and
created,
bound.
So the child learns almost to do this as an individual exercise that they can do.
But always knows that strength is in doing it as 10 of them together.
It's collaborative, that they're all doing it.
So they're learning teamwork,
yes,
collaboration, listening to each other. So there's a lot of other developmental milestones that we are
Yes,
hitting, as we say.
some of it is naturally present. When
And
someone stumbles, you can see two others come to his or her aid
Yeah,
almost
yeah,
instinctively because they know each other. They're from the same group.
it is
yes,
based on their context.
Yes.
Okay, it is what they relate to. So these stories, these narratives are all what they see, what they live.
I should tell you one incident. So in
Yeah.
scene, this is I think what Gayathri was trying to get at also. In scene, so when we started talking about the stories, we did an exercise the previous day. This is a 5-day workshop. So on the first day, we did an exercise called the magic box exercise, where it's an invisible box that you come and place on a dais where you're performing, and you pull out and through dumb charades express to us what it is that you've pulled out of the box. It could be an object, it could be an action, it could be whatever, and you're expecting the audience to tell you what it is, to guess what that thing is. And so Sanket, one of our facilitators, another absolutely marvelous book illustrator, designer, joy of life, right, he was the one who was demonstrating it to them, and then the kids came and began to do it. And the kids were doing objects like cap and water bottle or a jar, pickle jar, which Sanket also did. And we got some 30-40 words out of an hour and a half's exercise. And at the end of the day, the three of us who were facilitating the workshop got together and realized that these are all English words that were very easy for us to guess. So the next morning when we met, we were supposed to now start working on the story. And we thought, Samarth and Sanket and I, all of us thought, not a very good idea. That they are being kind to us. They are giving us words that they think we can easily guess, and they're not trying to challenge us in any way. So I went back to my group in the morning and I was all in a huff. And I was like, you guys, you're the most selfish bunch of people I have ever met in my life. And you've met these kids just for the first time the previous day. And they're like, what the heck did we do wrong? What happened here? And I'm like, here we are talking in English with you. You're talking in English with us. We bring to you our world. We're showing you like pickle jars that we have in Bombay. We're showing you caps and ties and pens and notebooks and so on. There's not a single word that you use locally that you have brought to us. Why is that allowed? Why are we only allowing a one-way street traffic to happen over here? So they're stunned for a moment.
yeah. Wow.
And then they were bouncing off the walls. Then they can't stop giving me the words for. So we start with the pine tree that is local. They have a word for the bark. They have a word for the trunk. They have a word for branches that are high and branches that are low. They have 3 words for the different parts of the pine cone. One is the parts of the pine cone itself, Then there's the seed inside it. Then there is the edible part inside that seed. Each of those things has a word. And I'm like, okay, now you need to stop because I can't remember this many words at once. But what happened over there in that exercise is that now their relationship to the story changed completely.
Yeah.
Now they had some words that they knew that we knew, and they had some words that only they knew. Suddenly, they are not equal. They have to teach us. Chiluk, they'll say, Chiluk ka kya matlab hai? And I have forgotten already. It also makes it easier for them to forget English.
Yeah.
Because they see that when I forget what they are telling me, I just go back and ask them again.
Yeah.
And everything shifts. And then you've got people, you should see some of the videos we have of choo-choo trains that Sanket had, where they were doing intergalactic travel. And how they are sticking to each other as if now they bodily own us and they're allowing us to own them. That's the space you want to create. That's the place you want to get to. Because you want to say, you and I, we both have stories to tell. We are not yet storytellers. That's a skill. It's a craft. And we will learn it together. But I want to hear your story. I want you to hear mine. And then let's see what we can make ours.
Together. Yeah.
And what age group is this, Gayathri, Alka, that you worked with, like specifically in SEAM?
At SEAM, it was between 9 and 15 years of age. And they were from village schools, local village schools, about 10 village schools. Children from there had come.
10 villages.
Yeah. And they'd come to this
Came to the Happy Library. Yeah.
Yes, Happy Children's Library. They named it.
Yeah.
They named it that.
The Happy Children's
They
Library.
named it.
Yeah. So
And Jayadi and Atulda, who run that library, also
We've interviewed them, by the way. They've been our Learning Monday
they're
guests.
mentioned here
yeah.
because the heart of the place is the two of them. You know.
So
So
we will share that also. So for
Yes.
our viewers, we've done an event with them.
Yes.
very nice to hear
Yes.
that. So
And
yeah, but
we were very fortunate in that one of my students, Samad Bhagwat, who now lives in Machkhali near Ranikhet, he works with them. And he induced us to come visit and to be there. And then he was one of the facilitators in this workshop as well. So there is this, it's a really lovely web that already exists. All we need to
Yeah.
do is to go put our weight on it and see if it will carry that. You know.
Exactly. And that's really the intention behind these talks, to really create community and a multiplier wherever
Excellent.
it's
Thank you
possible.
for
yeah.
including us in this.
Yes,
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 yes.
absolutely.
Yeah, amazing. I think through this conversation, the audience has probably heard a lot of both the challenges of this onerous task as well as the joy and the love that goes behind creating each of these stories. Certainly, how uh, liberating it is for the child
Yeah,
to own that story and to make it their own. So
Yeah,
very true.
yeah.
I'd coming to just the last, maybe 5 minutes, if I'd get you all to talk about what's the vision for going forward? What is your immediate plan, and what is it that you want to see maybe a year, 2 years down the line, so that you stay on track and you propel forward?
Right. So at this point, we've moved on from doing smaller workshops, workshops with different places, working with an NGO at one particular village. We are saying let's do work that involves longer term engagement, where we are working with a particular set of schools for at least a year, so that that kind of dependence grows, and finally we set each other free, saying go do your thing. We are about to embark on a teacher training program with teachers from 4 different schools in rural Dehradun. It's happening end of this month, end of April. Actually, it
It
starts.
begins,
Yeah,
yeah,
it happens from the beginning or from the end of April. Our team is all set to go there. We are going to be conducting workshops. If we can do it in person as often as possible, and if we can't, we do it or virtually, where we try and engage with the teachers from these schools which are run by not for profit. Now, why these particular schools? These are schools that have never had any kind of intervention from anyone else. They have approached us through a workshop that we went for in Dehradun, and they came to us and they said, "आप हमारे साथ काम करेंगे?" So we said, "Yes,
right,
why
right.
not?" This is a place in Dandapur, which is about an hour away from Dehradun, and that is exciting for us because here are teachers. There's Zora, who's the principal of that school, who says, आप आइए, मैं आपको पूरा दुनिया जन्नत दिखा दूंगी यहाँ पे, is what she's saying, you
Right.
know. And working with teachers from these 4 schools, which means working with so many more students, because we do know that working with teachers can multiply the kind of effort
Yes.
we are
Yeah.
putting in, and we are hoping that many more children will benefit. So that's one very happy thing that we're looking for at this point of
Yeah.
time. Similar to this, we're looking at working working with agencies where there is long-term engagement. There is a slight
Yeah.
shift in our own approach to working with a certain set of stakeholders. When I say a certain set of stakeholders, I mean that we work with children, we work with students, we work with teachers, and we work with NGOs. We're
Yeah.
slowly moving towards working with libraries and librarians. Okay,
Yeah.
and that for us is exciting. There is a section in Karnataka which is interested, which is asking for us. There is a wider set of librarians who have already seen our books. This set has come back to us saying, how can we collaborate together? And why librarians, Alka? You have to say this.
Yes, while librarians, well, we unfortunately don't in our country have a really large reading culture. And
Yeah.
because we don't have a large reading culture, um we don't have a large set of librarians who understand why their presence is critical.
Yeah.
We also don't have a large set of translators who understand why their role might be critical. We have 22 languages officially in our country, and we don't even get the literature of various languages into other languages easily.
Yeah.
We are beginning again to see that happen. But some of the most incredible literature from Malayalam, from Hindi, from Marathi, from Gujarati, from Bengali is just not available to speakers of other languages at all.
Yeah.
To think that 76 years after independence, we don't have a thriving culture of exchange of
Exchange.
literature is a pity, right? And we are seeing that librarians, at least in rural areas, are beginning to find a certain place
Yeah.
for other reasons, not because they understand their role as communicators, conveyors, protectors of a certain kind of education or learning, but because resources are limited. And so after school hours, if children can come and spend a little bit of time in a space where they can
Yeah.
get help with their homework and so on, has been the impetus for the growth of rural libraries. We're saying, let's do a judo move on that. Let's convert on why librarians are actually probably better partners for us than even teachers. Librarians don't carry the load of completing curriculum. They're not pressed for time in quite the same ways as teachers in rural areas are. Librarians are not necessarily art teachers or language teachers. So their interest is less in correcting the child, more in enjoying the child's imagination. And those are the degrees of freedom that we desperately need in
Yeah.
order for a child to be able to express herself and create a set of values that you can then question, argue, judge, deal with. Because even setting down what are the values that we share takes time.
Yeah.
You need for them to grow and develop. You can't just pluck them off from somewhere and place them and say, okay, this is a value to follow. Right? And so we are beginning to feel, and it's taken us 10 years to come to this place. This project started in 2014-15.
Yeah.
And then in 2021, we became a foundation. We are now in 2025. And we're coming to a place where we feel maybe approaching this through librarians might be the magic bullet, so we are not abandoning our idea of going into schools or working with NGOs or involving teachers in this, but we're wondering whether this other pathway might become the seed for something much larger than what we have accomplished with others so far.
So thank you for that very interesting and idea sparking discussion. When I met, and I'm saying sharing this with all of you viewers, that when I first met Dr. Alka, I wanted to be a fly on the wall in her classes. And this has sort of, in a sense, been a short 40-minute quasi class that we all got a chance to attend. And I invite each one of you watching to think that if this is something that touches you, if you think that this is something that you want to partner with, participate with, learn more about, then this is the right time to reach out to Dr. Alka, Gayathri. And
Definitely.
we also want to see what is it that we can do to provide some impetus to the work they've been doing for the last 10 years, and specifically the direction that they're now planning on taking going forward,
Yes.
and what kind of collaborations, partnerships can work for them to do their uh, passion. I think the passion project, that's what LeTS is.
Come,
And
come, infuse us with your ideas too.
We'll be happy taking
Yes,
you
we'd love
along.
to hear
We'll
more.
be happy taking you along. Absolutely.
yes. So thank you for this. And Gayatri, you are the wind, we need the wings also for this project.
Thank you.
So
Yes, thank
you
you.
need to be well. And because we do so much work in the space of children with cancer, I think there are lots of stories through St. Jude that
Yeah.
we can also pull together of
Sure.
children who've gone through childhood cancer. And because
Yes.
we also work with them as long-term thrivers, maybe
Yes.
there's a piece of work that can get done
Awesome.
with
It would be great.
collaboration with St. Jude, and we'll talk about that separately
Sure,
Yeah.
for sure,
as
for
well.
sure. Let's do that.
Let's, and that's what it is. So let's, on that note, let's.
Thank you so very much, Deepa,
Thank
for
you,
inviting
Deepa.
us here and for allowing us to sort of air our views on this lovely forum. Thank you so very much.
Thank you, Deepa.
Yes,
It's been a
thank you.
pleasure. We love talking about what we do. And thank you for giving us that window. Absolutely. Thank you very much.
Let's keep talking, let's keep working, let's keep making books and getting children to get excited about reading.
Thank you.
Yes, yes.
Thank you.
Let's.
That's awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye bye.
Bye.
Take care.
Bye.